stamping friends, it's Jackie Bolhuis from ClompandStampers.com coming to you from Zeeland, Michigan. Today in my tips and techniques video, I don't even know what to name it. I have so many little tips I want to share with you. You're just going to have to watch to see if you can pick up on all of them. This is the card we're going to make, and like I said, there's tons of little things I want to talk about in it. One of them being paper cutting. Now for some of you, when I say paper cutting, you're like, well, I know how to cut paper. Well, I want to share just a couple of tips with you because I get asked this quite often. One of the questions is, how do you know what size layers to make? Now, I kind of have a rule of thumb because I like to have even borders all the way around that, you know, we know our card front is 5.5 by 4 1/4, so that's always the starting point. But then I always make this layer, so we're going to start with the white layer on here, even amount smaller on both sides, if that makes sense. So if this is 5.5 and this is 4 1/4, quite often I will make this 5, which means it's a 1/2 inch smaller, and this 3 3/4, so it's a 1/2 inch smaller. Does that make sense? So we're basically going a 1/2 inch smaller both ways, or a 1/4 inch smaller both ways. Quite often you'll see layers that are 5 1/4 by 4, so it's a 1/4 inch both ways. Or you might want to go an inch smaller both ways, so then we'd have 4.5 by 3 1/4. Okay, so I just always try to do the same. So for this card, I've got my Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer here, and I am going to go 3/4 of an inch smaller, and that's truly how I think of it. I know that 5.5 and 4 1/4 are my card front size. That number is, that should just be stuck in your head. So if I'm going to go 3/4 of an inch smaller, 4 1/4 is my size, and I'm going to move over 3/4 of an inch, which puts me at 3.5. Okay, so we'll put that there and we'll cut it. And then when I turn it this way, 5.5 is a regular size, so we need to go 3/4 smaller again. So we're going to just go back 3/4, which brings us right here to 4 3/4. And we're going to cut it. You know what? As long as we have the paper cutter here, and then we're going to do some stamping, let's just keep talking about paper cutting. If you have followed me for a while or try to read any of my instructions, you will know that I cut in 1/8 quite often. I like the look, like on this card of this black one, where this layer is smaller. It's smaller than cutting in 1/4. Most people tend to cut in 1/4. So what we're going to do, remember what this size is? Okay, it's 3/4 smaller, which means 4 3/4 by 3.5. Okay, I'm probably driving you crazy with all these measurements, but I'll try to write them all down in the blog post for you. So I want to cut my layer, the black, which is going to go behind it, 1/8 bigger. Okay, and I don't always try to do the math, so to speak. I have to do the math when I type it out, but I just know that this black, since my white, okay, is 3/4 smaller, so we started at 4 1/4, and we're just going back 3/4 to 3.5. But since this needs to be 1/8 bigger, then all I need to do, and on this cutter, each little mark is actually a 1/16, so you're going to go every other one. It's the bigger ones. So I'm just going to move this over 1/8. So we'll move it over 1/8 and cut. We know this way was 3/4 smaller, so 5.5, 3/4 back puts me right here at 4 3/4, and then just move it over 1/8, which is 2 of the little lines, one of the bigger one, and cut it. Now what those exact measurements are, without me sitting down and thinking it, I don't really know, because I always just kind of, I know I'm 3/4 smaller, so I moved it up 1/8. And there we go. We have a perfect mat on that one. So those are some paper cutting tips. Now let's move on to some stamping tips. Let's take a look at our card again, what we're making. And can you see the nice marbled background on there? It just adds a little bit of texture. And I'm adding texture especially to this card because it's flat. Okay, I don't have anything sticking up. I didn't even use dimensionals, if you can believe that. But it makes it a very mailable card. And I know some of you struggle with making cards that you can just pop in an envelope and easily mail. So let's talk background stamps. This is a brand new one. It's called Marbled, and it's just gorgeous. So we're going to use that one. I have clear mounts. Almost everything I buy is clear mounts, so I have it already on my big clear block here. And with background stamps, just a few tricks. Honestly, they are so big, you know, I don't think my hands are tiny, but I have a hard time handling them. So I do everything upside down. So there's our background stamp, and we're going to just ink it up. Okay, again, upside down. Now, I know, because I kind of practiced this card before I did the video, that even though I'm using powdered pink, it's a little bit too dark for me. I want it lighter. I want a real soft background. So I'm going to first just stamp this on scrap paper. Okay, then I'm going to lay it here, and I'm going to take my cardstock that we've cut for our card already, lay it on top, bring some scrap paper, we'll move that over a little bit, like so, and then we can just rub. This really is the easiest way with background stamps to get a nice image. Not get your hands too inky and not have to worry about trying to hold this ginormous stamp. So we'll pick it up, and there is our nice marbled background. Now the stamp set we're using is called Lovely Friends, and this one really struck my eye because I love how big these words are. That's what made this card so easy. Big words, few flowers, done. That's my style. So we are going to first stamp our words because I wanted to make sure that my flowers kind of got placed not necessarily right on top of the words. Now this word set, or the word that we're using, is very large as well. You can see it here. It is photopolymer, which makes it really nice for placement. So we're gonna just stick that, I always do it upside down, make sure it's stuck on there good. But again, because it is so big, I am going, ooh, wrong color, almost messed that one up. We're going to take our ink pad and we're gonna ink upside down, okay? Way easier than trying to do this. So just leave it lay there. Now, because of it being photopolymer, before we stamp, we're gonna grab our piercing pad here. Remember, photopolymer, you should always stamp on a pad to give you a better image. And I've just taken a piece of the grid paper and I cut them in half and I tape it around here so that I don't get my pad all inky. We're gonna put our cardstock on here. Now, this one I am going to stamp the right way up like this because I want to be able to see through it to get it placed where I want it placed. Okay, we can line this up really easily. I'm just looking at the bottom of the F to make the letters straight. You know, one of the advantages of photopolymer, checking my S and my G, and then make sure you give it some good pressure. Put your weight into this. This stamp is really big, and to get a good image, you want to make sure you really press hard on there. And then we'll peel it off, and there we go. We have our good friends are hard to find. Okay, now we're going to have some fun with flowers. We'll take a peek at our stamp set here again. And I love this little two-step flower. Okay, we've talked about two-step stamping on some other things before. We have our more solid piece and our more detailed piece. Now the one really cool thing that Stampin' Up! Has been doing recently, see the little, it's almost a tab, okay? That tells me that part goes up and that part goes up, and they're gonna line up really nice for us. So we're gonna start with our more solid, and we're using powdered pink, which is the same that I did the marbling with, but since we're going full strength, it's going to show up for us. So I'm pointing the tab up so I'll know how to place the other one. And we're going to just put 3 of these. I learned a long time ago that someone said in design, 3 is a good number. It really balances and draws your eye in there. So I do that quite often. Then we have Berry Burst with our second one. Okay, tab up. You can see how stained my stamp is. Remember, photopolymer, especially when you use deep reds and pinks, it will stain, but it's not going to hurt it. So we'll just ink that up. And again, my tab pointing up, and I can see through there and stamp right on there. And we have our flowers. Now, Lemon Lime Twist. Love this color. Love, love, love. But what I'm going to do is just add some of these branches on my flower. You'll see here what I did, kind of filling it in nice. Now, if you take a peek here, let's see if you can see it. See how this one's lighter than this one's lighter than that one. What I did, each time I inked up my stamp, so let's ink it up, and I am going to stamp once, and then I'm going to move it a little bit and stamp it again without re-inking. That is giving me the 2 colors in there. Now, a little trick here, and again, we're full of tips. When I stamp this, if I take this next one here, and let's just place it here, okay? If you can see, part of these leaves did not get stamped, okay? It came off here. So if I do my second stamping, and we'll just go right there, you can see, hopefully you can see how right here these leaves are darker right on the edge, and it looks like you kind of funny smear on there. That's because of what it ran off here. Let's just flip this over. You know, if I would do, so I want you really to understand this because I know people have ruined cards this way. We're going to stamp right there. So half our branch is on, half is off. But now if I turn it and want to put the whole full thing on there for a second stamping, ignore that little boo-boo. You can see how I have those different colors in there. So you always want to make sure if you're going to stamp once and then twice that with the second stamping it wasn't running off the cardstock. It's kind of hard to explain, but hopefully you understand what I'm saying. So we're just going to go ahead and we're going to do 1, 2, let's bring in 1. Now, because I want to turn this and catch a leaf that I know didn't stamp there, but I want it lighter, I'm actually going to ink it up, put it on scrap paper to get my second one. So I get the different shades in there. So that is all we have to do for the stamping on there. We've already cut our black. I'm not going to bore you with sticking it together, but you can see there's my nice little black mat. And then on the inside, I basically did the same with the flowers, picked out one of the words from the greeting set, and there we go. Like I said, this video was a little long with a lot of tips in it. If you go back, we talked about doing background stamps and doing them upside down to get the best image. Stamp it on scrap paper first if you want it lighter. You know, two-step stamps, remember, the newer ones have these little tabs. Take advantage of that. When you stamp images more than once, okay, make sure you got a good clean stamping the first time before you do the second time to get a good clean stamping the second time. And I think most importantly in this video, we talked about cutting paper. Just my rule of thumb, because I like things even, is just cut this way and that way, the same size smaller than our front, 5.5 by 4 1/4. So go 1/2 inch smaller, you know, both ways. And then just one little line out, or if you're using Stampin' Up! Cutters, it's actually 2 lines, but 1/8 out from the size on both of them. So hopefully that isn't too confusing and that it helps you. So I hope you enjoyed this card. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do tips and techniques every week, plus some other videos. My blog is www.klompenstampers.com, and during the week I post new ideas every day. So as always, if you have questions, make sure you get a hold of me. I am happy to help you with all of your stamping needs, and I hope to be able to share more stamping ideas with you. Have a stamp happy day.